The best way to control a people is to convince them they are free. Abraham Lincoln. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. I saw it from the inside. They told me I was chosen, that I would lead, that history would remember my name as the one who saved a nation. And for a while, I believed them. I believed I was free. But freedom is a beautiful lie when you don't see the walls. Becoming president didn't make me powerful. It showed me who really holds power. And it wasn't the people. It wasn't the Constitution. It wasn't me. It was something older, something colder. A silent council of those who never appear in the light. They don't run for office. They don't give speeches. But they decide everything. At first, I thought it was just politics. But the deeper I went, the more I realized this was never about governance. This was about control. Every law, every reform, every battle, all of it part of a script. And I wasn't the writer. I was just another actor, a puppet in a well-rehearsed show, designed not to awaken minds, but to keep them asleep. They made me sit in rooms where decisions were already made. They gave me papers with my name printed on them, not for me to read, but to sign. Smile for the cameras, say the right words, keep the machine running. Behind every policy was a pattern. Behind every pattern, a purpose. And that purpose was simple. Make sure people never realize they were born in chains, not chains of iron. Chains of routine, of obedience, of distraction. Work, consume, obey, repeat, retire, die. A perfect system, not of force, but of consent. People don't fight it because they don't see it. They call it education. They call it responsibility. They call it success. But it's just a factory of souls, molding each person into the same shape, the same silence. I saw children taught not how to think, but what to think. I saw men break their backs for promises that would never come true. I saw women sacrifice their fire to fit someone else's version of who they should be. And the worst part, they all believed it was their choice. That's how perfect the system is. You don't need walls when people build their own cages. I sat in the highest seat in the land. And from there, I saw the lowest truth. Not because I was wise, not because I was brave, but because I stopped pretending. I saw that everything I thought was mine, my power, my voice, my destiny, was never truly mine. It was borrowed, managed, supervised. You want to know the real reason I started speaking out? Because I realized if I stayed silent, I'd be complicit. I'd become the very lie I was supposed to fight. And I couldn't let that happen. So I began to watch, to listen, to trace the roots of the illusion, to understand who wrote the script and why. And what I found changed everything. They never hide. That's the trick. The elite doesn't operate in darkness, it operates in daylight, behind symbols, titles, and rituals so ordinary they become invisible. They own nothing, and yet they own everything. Not with weapons, but with stories, with repetition, with rules written in childhood and never questioned again. They build systems that look like freedom. You choose your school, your job, your partner. You vote, you dream. But the path was already paved. Every step designed to keep you moving in circles, chasing something you'll never reach. They teach you the rules, then make you believe you invented them. Wake up early, study hard, get a job, earn, save, obey, retire. Hope it was all worth it. This isn't life, it's programming. They control education, so you never ask the right questions. They control media, so you forget what silence feels like. They control markets, so your time becomes a number, your energy, a currency, your soul, a transaction. And they don't need to chase you. You chase yourself. You keep yourself small, afraid to stop, afraid to fail, afraid to think, because somewhere deep inside, they've planted a seed, the idea that you are not enough. That's the core of the script. Not chains, not guns, doubt. They made success a carrot on a stick, always ahead, never here. And the moment you get close, they move it again. I met these people, shook their hands, smiled while they spoke in riddles. They talked about stability, legacy, order. But what they really meant was obedience. Their empire is built on predictability, on humans acting like machines, on fear dressed as normal life. They don't want rebels, they want routine. They want your fire turned into quiet compliance. And the cruelest part, they convinced everyone that this is just how things are, that this is all life can be, but it's not. I saw glimpses, people who broke the script, artists, thinkers, lovers, wanderers. They lived by their own rhythm. They didn't ask for permission. They terrified the system, not because they were dangerous, but because they were free. The elite doesn't fear violence, it fears awakening, because once you see the bars, you can't unsee them. Once you hear your real voice, the noise stops mattering, and once enough of us remember who we are, their script ends, not with a revolution, with a silence they can't control. I realized I wasn't the president, I was the instrument. They told me I held the pen, that I could write the next chapter of history. But the pen was never in my hand. It was placed there, carefully, briefly, and always watched. Every decision came with a script. Every meeting had a purpose before it began. Every word I spoke had been written, not by me, but by those who never needed a title. At first, I thought I was leading. Then, I noticed the patterns, the same faces behind every curtain, the same whispers shaping every law. No matter the crisis, the solution was always the same. More control, more fear, more silence. I started asking questions. Not out loud, that would have been suicide, but inside, quietly. I compared notes, I traced connections, and I saw the web. Banks, corporations, secret meetings behind polished doors, smiles that said everything and nothing, deals that weren't about money, but about people, about influence, about keeping the game alive. They called it governance. I called it theater. I was the face, the speech, the illusion of change. They were the continuity, the echo beneath every promise, the shadow behind every hope. The deeper I looked, the more I felt the walls closing in. Not because I was trapped, but because I was starting to see. And once you see it, you can't play dumb. There were nights I couldn't sleep. Not from guilt, but from clarity. I wasn't elected. I was selected, groomed, positioned, like a chess piece, moved just far enough to give the illusion of play. They don't want chaos. They want managed opposition. They need presidents to act bold, but stay inside the lines. I tried to step out. Just once. I rewrote a speech, removed a paragraph, added one honest sentence. The next morning, my advisors looked at me like I'd lost my mind. The phone calls started. Meetings doubled. Smiles became stares. The message was clear. Fall back in line. And I did. For a while. Because fear still had me. But something had shifted. That moment, that single act of truth, cracked the mirror. I saw that my role wasn't to lead. It was to distract, to absorb the hopes of millions and then funnel them into nothing, to keep the machine loved even as it devoured its own. I wasn't the president. I was the product, marketed, managed, sold. And I had two choices: keep performing or disappear. There's a moment when the lights go out. Not outside, inside. It doesn't come with a sound or a warning. It's the quiet realization that everything you thought was solid is nothing but smoke. That's when you meet the shadow, not as a monster, but as a mirror. I stood in front of that mirror many nights, wearing the suit, holding the title, rehearsing the same phrases. But what stared back at me wasn't a leader, it was a stranger. The face fit the role, but the eyes were tired. Not from sleepless nights, from years of pretending to be something I wasn't. All this time, I blamed the system. I pointed at the elite, the structures, the games they played, and yes, they exist. Yes, they manipulate. But the most dangerous manipulator was within me, the version of myself that wanted to be accepted, that needed to be seen as important, that feared being ordinary. That's what the shadow reveals. Not your enemies, but your lies. The small ones you tell to get through the day. The big ones you build your identity around. It whispered things I didn't want to hear. That I liked the spotlight more than the truth. That I wanted to change the world, but not if it meant giving up my comfort. That I wore the mask, not because I had to, but because I was afraid of who I was without it. And that realization breaks you. Not all at once, but slowly. It strips away the layers, the image, the speeches, the history books, until there's nothing left but a human soul asking, "What now?" But that's the beginning of real freedom. Not the kind that looks good in headlines. Not the kind that comes with rebellion or applause. Real freedom starts when you stop lying to yourself. When you admit that you've been complicit. That you said yes when you meant no. That you stood still when you should have walked away. I sat in silence for days, not because I was planning, but because I had nothing left to say. And in that silence, I found something I didn't expect. Peace. A deep, grounded peace that came not from victory, but from surrender. Not to them, to truth. The shadow wasn't there to destroy me. It was there to integrate me, to bring back the parts I had buried, the voice I had silenced, the fire I had ignored. And once I faced it, they lost their grip. Because you can't be controlled by shame once you've made peace with who you are. That's the secret no one tells you. The system doesn't fall when you fight it. It falls when you no longer fear it, when you no longer need it, when you walk away from its rewards and its punishments alike. From that point on, I didn't speak to convince. I didn't move to impress. I simply lived, fully, quietly, clearly. And in that stillness, I became dangerous, not to others, but to the illusion they had built. Because nothing is more powerful than a human being who no longer needs permission to exist. They built the perfect illusion. A world where slavery looks like freedom and obedience feels like virtue. No chains, no guards, no prisons, just ideas. Carefully planted, repeated, reinforced, until you stop questioning and start living by them. You're told from childhood that life follows a path. You're born, you go to school, you find a job, you work hard, you build a family, you retire. And if you're lucky, if you play by all the rules, you get a few quiet years before the end. But no one tells you who wrote those rules. No one shows you that this path isn't built for your joy or growth. It's built for predictability, for order, for control. It's not a life, it's a loop. They don't need you to be miserable. In fact, they prefer if you're comfortable. Just enough comfort to keep you numb. Just enough entertainment to keep you distracted. Just enough fear to keep you obedient. And all the while, your true power, your creativity, your intuition, your wildness is buried under routine, responsibility, and quiet resignation. That's the design. They don't fear riots or revolutions. They fear awakening. They fear someone like you realizing that your mind was never truly yours, that your desires were shaped, your beliefs implanted, your goals handed to you like a checklist. I watched this machine from the top. I saw how presidents, ministers, media, and corporations all play their role. It's not a conspiracy, it's coordination, a silent agreement to keep the wheels turning, no matter who gets crushed underneath. And the deepest part of the trap, they convince you that there is no alternative, that dreaming of a different life is irresponsible, that wanting more freedom, more truth, more self is dangerous. But it's not. It's natural. What's dangerous is forgetting who you are, forgetting that you are not a role, not a label, not a product of your education or your income. You are something much bigger, much wilder, much freer. I've seen people break the script. They don't make headlines. They don't wear crowns, but they walk with clarity. They move with purpose. And the system can't touch them because they've stopped needing it. That's the truth they hide. That you don't have to ask for permission to live fully. That the prison door was never locked. That everything you need is already within you. Buried, perhaps, but alive. And the moment you turn inward instead of outward, the illusion starts to crack. The world doesn't need more followers. It needs individuals, awake, grounded, unafraid to walk away from the story they were given and write their own. That's when the system loses. Not when you fight it, when you leave it behind. This isn't motivation. This isn't about feeling better or chasing success. This is survival. Soul survival. Because once you see the machine, you can't go back. And if you don't act, it will pull you back in. Quietly, slowly, completely. You need a new map. One not drawn by them, one that leads out. First, silence the noise. The system is loud on purpose. News, ads, trends, gossip. Everyone's screaming, selling, performing. But in that storm, you forget your own voice. Step away. Turn it off. Go where no one is talking. The silence will scare you at first. That's how you know it's working. In the quiet, the truth comes back. Second, stop waiting for permission. No one is coming to save you. No one will say, "Now you're ready. You are the authority now." If you wait for approval, you'll wait your whole life. The system trains you to seek validation. Break that reflex. Act without it. Create without it. Speak without it. The moment you do, you'll feel something you haven't felt in years. Your own power. Third, reconnect with your body. The mind is easy to hijack, but the body remembers truth. Move, breathe, walk in nature, touch the earth, stretch, sweat. Be present in your skin. The system wants you numb, sitting, scrolling, frozen. But a body in motion is a body that remembers it's alive. And aliveness is rebellion. Fourth, create instead of consume. Don't just watch, scroll, or buy. Make something, anything, a drawing, a song, a journal, a plan, a garden. Creation wakes up something ancient inside you. It says, "I am not just a user, I am a source." That scares them, because creators don't obey. They build new worlds. Fifth, find your people. You're not alone. Others feel it too. That quiet burning, that deep knowing that this life can't be all there is. Find them. Speak the truth, even if your voice shakes. Real connection is rare, but it's everything. Together, we become louder than the noise. Together, we remember what it means to be human. These are not theories. I lived them. I lost almost everything to follow them, but I gained something no system could ever offer: myself. The door out isn't locked. It never was, but you must choose to walk through it every day, again and again, not to escape the world, to return to it, real, whole, and finally free. They don't need to chase you. They already have you, not with guns or fences, but with agreements, quiet, invisible contracts you never signed, but live by every single day. You agree to be small. You agree to stay busy. You agree to keep your head down and play your part. And the moment you even think of breaking that script, the system responds. Not with violence, with distraction. That's their greatest weapon. Not control, confusion. They flood your mind with information, but starve you of truth. You scroll, you swipe, you search, but the more you consume, the less you feel. That's by design, because a numb human is an obedient human. They've turned reality into a performance. You live on a stage, always being watched. And so, you start acting, not for your truth, but for their approval. Every platform, every screen, every trend becomes a mirror that reflects not who you are, but who they want you to be. They sell you freedom, but only in choices they created. Pick this career or that one, this party or that one, this lifestyle or that illusion. But step outside their menu, and suddenly you're labeled dangerous, crazy, lost. They use shame to police your mind. You want to rest? You're lazy. You want to leave your job? You're irresponsible. You want to live differently? You're selfish. They don't need walls. Your fear keeps you in place. The system isn't built on force. It's built on belief, on stories passed down, repeated, normalized. Stories like, work hard and you'll be rewarded. Trust authority. Life is suffering. Just accept it. These are myths, not truths, and the moment you stop believing them, everything starts to shake. But they planned for that too. If you wake up, they offer you a new role: the rebel, the spiritual seeker, the entrepreneur, and they market those roles just like the others. Sell you books, courses, paths to authenticity, all inside their cage, because the system is smart. It doesn't care what you believe, as long as you stay busy, as long as you keep running, even if you run in circles that feel free. So how do you break it? You stop playing. You stop measuring your life by their metrics: status, money, likes, control. You start feeling instead of performing, being instead of proving. You start asking, does this feel true for me? Not, is this safe? Or, is this normal? Just, is this real? You stop reacting and start creating. You choose presence over speed, silence over noise, depth over surface. You remember that time is life, that every moment you give to the machine, you never get back. And you protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. This is how they lose. When you no longer need them, when your joy isn't tied to their rewards, when your peace doesn't depend on their approval, when your identity isn't shaped by their system. They don't know what to do with someone like that. Someone who listens more than they speak, who moves slowly in a rushing world, who values soul over survival. Someone who chooses meaning over performance, purpose over popularity, truth over comfort. That kind of human can't be bought, can't be scared, can't be programmed. That kind of human is the beginning of a new world. And it doesn't take a crowd, Just one, then another, quietly walking away. Not with anger, not with noise, just walking. Back to themselves. You want to defeat the system? You don't need to fight it. You just need to stop feeding it with your fear. Walk out, close the door, and never look back. We're sure you've discovered plenty of value, so subscribe now and stay connected.